Hello and welcome back to Away We Go. I'm Andrew.
I'm Kayla.
And today we have another special episode. All of our episodes are special, so at this point we'll make them special. We are doing our roundup review of our fifth country around the world, Spain.
In case you didn't know, we are on a trip around the world. We started in February and we are visiting over a dozen countries at least. Throughout 365 days. So we'll be heading back to Canada in February and we are closing in on the halfway mark.
Yeah. We just passed the 1/3 marker recently. I think what's even wilder is that we've only done, at the time of shooting, almost about 6 countries. And we're going to do double that in the next 7 months, especially when we hit Southeast Asia. Yeah. So it's going to be crazy. But anyway, the focus today is on Spain. So as we typically do, we talk everything from finance to the things we love to where we stayed and everything in between. I'm going to get started with the finance bit. And there's typically 4 things I want to quickly talk about, or 4 things I want to cover. First one is our activities. We actually did probably the most activities that we've done in the country, but the good news is we did probably half of our activities for free. Spain had a lot of free days. There was that Sunday museum days that were free. There was a number of different elements that were just kind of outside. We also went with friends at different parts of Spain, so they covered some of the cost of that. So that plays into it as well. All in all, for activities, we only paid $416, which is wild in Spain, because I know for a fact that the Sagrada Familia was way more expensive and stuff like that. But again, we split the visit with other friends. So what we paid was about $416, which has been on par for most of the countries. Most countries we've spent about that $400 or so.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the most expensive one that we did was the aquarium in Valencia. It was $113 Canadian for the 2 of us, and it was lovely. It was great.
It was awesome.
We loved it. We then went to 2 different zoos. One of them was technically a biopark. That one was $88 for the 2 of us. And then the other zoo was $65. One of them was in Valencia, one of them was in Barcelona. Then we did the Palace of Madrid. That was $63. And that one was a guided tour.
Yeah.
Which we just got there on time if you didn't see the vlog. But well worth it, I think. So that was nice. We did Park Güell, which was $60, and that didn't have a guided, non-guided, unguided, whatever. Just a quick note, because we just realized it. The $61 for Park Güell was for 4 people. So it's technically $15 a person, Canadian. So $30 per couple. Oh my God, I'm terrible at math. Then the last one was the Cathedral in Valencia. It was $27. That was the one that had the Holy Grail. Some of the other activities that I listed, and I don't think I forgot many, but we went to beaches. That was free. We went to markets. That was free. We went to the Ceramics Museum, which was on a Sunday in Valencia, was it? So, and they had free museum Sundays for some of their museums, so that was free. We went to the Archaeology Museum in Valencia on a Sunday. That was free. The Sagrada Familia, I listed as $0 because technically we didn't pay for it, but...
We didn't?
No, Kayla and Gavin paid for the Sagrada Familia. We paid for Park Güell, and then we swapped stuff. So that's what I'm saying is technically it did cost. It was about $120 for 2 people. And then the Temple of Debal, which we recommend. That one was really great.
That was really cool.
So yeah, all in all, it was about $417. The big one was the aquarium. Top 3 was aquarium, biopark, and zoo. So a lot of animal stuff in this place. Moving on to our next big categories, and I'll skim through these pretty quickly. One, our flights were way more expensive because we include the cost of flying across the ocean. That one was obviously the biggest one, and that one for us was $1,600 and 120,000 airplane points to get business class. So it was a pretty steep price.
It was a long flight though. It was 9 hours from Colombia, and the first flight from Chile to Colombia was 5 hours, and the flight from Colombia to Madrid was 9 hours. So there was quite a bit of flying. So we wanted to be comfortable, and we wanted to try and hit the ground running when we got there. So we wanted to try and eliminate any sort of non-sleeping time because a lot of times it's very hard to sleep on those long-haul flights when you're in just a regular seat.
Then it was our accommodations. This one was a lot higher than Europe in general, as we're seeing, is going to be a lot higher. So for 3 weeks is about $2,300. We did share a week or a few days where our friends Kayla and Gavin covered the cost of a place, and a few days where we covered the cost of the place. I think all in all they kind of balanced out. So still about $2,300 for 3 weeks, which is about $700 a week. Chile was a lot lower, but Spain was kind of on par with food costs. So I won't go into too much detail on that. Our eSIM cost is going to look a little bit weirder moving forward because we're buying Euro eSIMs. So sometimes we may be upping them in the country before we go to another country, or in this case we had to buy 3 eSIMs, 2 for Kayla and 1 for me over those 21 days. Whereas in Italy, we're literally only going to have 1 eSIM. In total, it is $212 a day. And that is almost everything that we're spending. As usual, we do not include flights or activities or the eSIMs. We take those out and count those as kind of overarching. But everything like accommodations, food, shopping, transportation around the cities, $212. That is our highest spend per day so far. So that is Spain from a financial perspective.
All right, so next up in our roundup, we are going through all of the places that we stayed and all of the places that we booked those accommodations where we stayed. In Spain, the majority of the places that we stayed at were Airbnbs. We also had a couple things that we booked through Booking. Did we have any hotels?
Our first
night was a hotel. So when we got into Madrid, we immediately went to the hotel, which was a Marriott. It was Marriott property, and we have a lot of Marriott points, so we actually used points for that stay. So that was the AC Hotel Avenida de America, which was a 3-star hotel. So nothing fancy, but also better than a hostel.
Again, we had just come off an overnight flight. I did not get a lot of sleep. We had a crying child, sadly, there. Plus, it was just uncomfortable in general. One
of the best things about this one was actually that we landed at 8 a.m. We made it to the hotel by like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Yeah. And they let us check in.
It was
quite early.
It was heaven.
Like because significantly earlier than we thought.
We were exhausted, so that was grateful for that.
Next up, we headed over to the Far Home Bernabeu, which was the hostel that we stayed at when we were in Madrid. This one was booked on Booking.com, and we stayed there for just about a week.
5 nights.
5 nights. 5 nights. After that, we took a train over to Valencia. When we got to Valencia, we stayed in a hostel for 7 nights. We stayed at the Up, which is actually in the train station. It was actually really convenient. There's a lot of stuff around it, which is normally how train stations are.
It was just a busy place, so what happened was there was a lot less people, less long stays. So we tended to have a lot of people who would come, show up later at night. A lot of people who would leave early in the day. So that was the only downside.
We were in a 18 bunk
bedroom. Or 16 or something like that.
It was a lot of bunk beds. Probably not ideal. No. But there were some areas that Andrew was able to do some work from, which was great.
Had a lot of good working space.
After the 7 days in the Up hostel, our friends Kayla and Gavin showed up, and we transferred to an Airbnb. We stayed in a 2-bedroom Airbnb. We were there for 3 nights before we all took the train over to Barcelona, where we stayed in an apartment that we got through Booking.com. It was also another 2-bedroom apartment. We ended up having 1 room with a queen bed and 1 room with 2 singles, so we had to move some of the furniture around so that Andrew and I could push our beds together. But we were there for 4 nights, and then that was the end of our Spain trip.
Then we ended up heading out on June 2nd, at the same day they left, actually. So Kayla, let's start with our favorites, as we usually do. What was your favorite activity that we did?
I have to say Sagrada Familia, because it was absolutely beautiful. Andrew likes to visit churches. This was more than just a church. This was like an art exhibition, basically. If you have no idea what the Sagrada Familia is, but it's the biggest church in Spain. It is designed by Antoni Gaudi, and he unfortunately passed before he was able to finish the church. And they are currently still building it. And for the first time since its inception, they actually have an end date in sight for when it will be completed, because it's still not completed. It was absolutely amazing. I could have spent all day just staring at the windows. They have these amazing stained glass features all over the church. And depending on where the sun is, it just changes the entire perspective of everything.
It's one of those things.
Just so cool.
One of those things that I would go back to on a different time of day or different time of year to just get to experience what that looked like.
Yeah, we went at sunset, and so we saw a lot of the reds and oranges and yellows as far as the stained glass went. But if you were to go in the morning around like the 9 a.m. as soon as they open, you would see a lot more of the blues and the greens and the purples. Yeah. Anyways, that was my favorite. But I do have to say my second favorite would be the biopark in Valencia.
Okay.
It was probably one of the best designed zoos I've ever seen. It was considered a biopark, but it is a zoo.
Yeah.
But it was all focused on the continent of Africa. It went through all the different animals and ecosystems there, and it just felt like all of the animals had so much space. It was very designed around what kind of environment they would have been in at home.
It was fantastic. And then also shout out to the aquarium. I enjoyed it. The only downside is it was a busy aquarium. Like there was a lot of people there.
The interesting thing about their aquarium as well is that it is more than one building. Usually you go to an aquarium and it's one building, you walk through it. This one was a true gigantic park. It was like a theme park.
Felt like you were in a zoo and you just had to go to different like pavilions. But
basically.
Okay.
What was your favorite?
Sagrada Familia, hands down. Like there's like if you're gonna do one thing when you are in Spain, my opinion is do the Sagrada Familia. Yeah. One of those things where it's like it's helpful to do a guided tour. You could have easily done it without it and just enjoyed the beauty without all the history and would have been fine.
But the tour guides there are also very passionate. All right. What was your favorite food that you ate in Spain, and what was your favorite restaurant?
I would say the favorite dish was obviously the paella. The paella we had that one night was kind of like our big paella night. The restaurant was called Yuzo. They have two locations. One of them was closed on the day, but the other one was open. It was kind of like in the Gothic quarters, I believe. So it was like right next to this like beautiful church. It was late at night, so everything was very dark. And you were just kind of sitting out on like the sidewalks or I guess the kind of the square, big paella, bottle of wine. It was fantastic.
In case you don't know, paella is one of the biggest dishes in Spain, most popular that you will hear associated with Spain. One of the things that is not as known or not as well known is that it originates in Valencia, which is where we wanted to have our first paella in Valencia. And they actually do a paella that is more land-based, even though they are on the coast. It's a lot of, I think there's rabbit, there's chicken, there's...
Yeah, I don't remember there's like 3 or 4 different meats.
The way to know if it's actually a legitimate paella and isn't something that they're pulling out of the freezer is if once you order it, there's at least a 20 to 30 minute wait time for that paella because it does take time. Yeah,
they told us 40 minutes at the time, and at that point we were A, pretty buzzed, and B, we were committed to it, so we were like, yeah, we'll wait. And it didn't take all 40 minutes, but I appreciated them kind of like giving us a heads up.
Yeah,
it was great.
My favorite meal or dish was the patatas bravas.
Oh, I forgot about those.
My absolute favorite. Basically, it's just like cubed potatoes, deep fried. They have this hot sauce.
It's like a creamy hot sauce, almost like a aioli, but way more.
Yeah. One of my favorite renditions of the patatas bravas that I had was actually done at a brewery that we went to in Barcelona, Barna Brew. And it was kind of like a reimagining of the patatas brava. It's basically like layers and layers and layers of these flaky, crispy potatoes with the drizzle over top. So good. But my favorite restaurant would have to have been the place that we went to in Barcelona as well. I'm gonna butcher the name here and I feel really bad. Xiloca or Xiloca, Xiloka is how you spell it. But basically it was a Catalan restaurant, and if you didn't know, Barcelona is home to a lot of the Catalan people. And so this was a restaurant that was truly more Catalan than Spanish as far as like food went, and they do have their own culinary world. Absolutely delicious. We had just a bunch of little tapas.
I was gonna say it was a lot more like smaller dishes, and we got to share stuff and try stuff out.
Spain in general is a lot of tapas.
It was fantastic. So.
Yeah.
What about favorite bar or favorite drink? I don't know if you have a favorite drink in particular, but favorite bar.
So we did end up hitting up 3 of the top 50 bars in the world. We did Salmon Guru in Madrid, and we did Sips and Paradiso in Barcelona. And although Sips is the number 1 bar on the list of all the cocktail bars, it wasn't my favorite. I'd have to say I really loved Paradiso. The theming was really, really cool. We ended up getting onto the list for that. It is kind of like a speakeasy vibe, so it's actually behind a hidden door in a, I think it's like a sandwich shop. The theming was fabulous. All of the drinks came in really cool containers. I ended up having like a really good umami, mushroomy type drink.
I was gonna say Paradiso in terms of the bar, like in terms of the kind of the experience of it all. I would say that at Sips, while it wasn't my favorite, they did have some really good flavored drinks. So there was a lot of good stuff there. I will say honorary mention to the London bar, which we fell into, so to speak. So we'd gone out eating and drinking, and then on our way home, we were kind of like, there was like a weird guy that we kind of like ran into, and we were like, it's kind of sketchy. So we're like, let's just tuck into this bar that's open and have a drink and kind of like wait it out. And it was called the London Bar, and it was like, I don't know if the theme was London, England, or if it was what, but it was very strange, but very fun to just be there. And there was like nobody else there except like one other person.
Great music, great vibes.
Yeah, it was just
Kaylee
cool.
got her picture printed on her cocktail.
So anyway, there's
really
a lot
sweet.
of really cool places. And I think those are like, I'd gotten a lot of feedback from friends who had gone to like Barcelona as an example, but I think Spain in general. And there's like a lot of different like pocket areas where you can go and you can get very different vibes. Like you'll have very different vibes in terms of like bars and restaurants and stuff like that. And we definitely experienced that.
Totally. All right, Andrew, what was your overall favorite day?
The obvious answer would be the day that we did Park Goal and Sagrada Familia in the same day. We just got to see 2 very important sites in terms of Barcelona and all that kind of stuff. So I would say that was probably the top one. But the day that we did the paella is kind of a funny day because we had a really bad breakfast. This was the day before, or I guess Kaylee and Gavin were arriving that day.
Yeah.
We had gone for breakfast at this one place, and we were just getting a cafe and a croissant, and the croissant was absolutely terrible. And we were just kind of like, this is terrible. And Kayla was feeling pretty shitty. So I was like, hey, let's just go to another bar or like a little restaurant cafe down the road, and we'll get another breakfast or do something else. And we ended up getting like, you got a beer, we got pieces of cake. We were like, whatever.
Tried to order another croissant, yeah.
And we tried to order another croissant. They were like, we don't have croissants. And I was like, well, what do you have? And they were like, we have. And they tried to explain this thing, and it ended up coming out as cake. And we were like, cool. But what turned the day around is then we went to Black Bear Brew, which was that French kind of brewery, and we had beers there. And then we went to go get Agua de Valencia, which is their kind of like cocktail-y drink. And that was really good. And then we finished by going to go get the paella, and I just really enjoyed that day. So that would be kind of like a secondary contender for me.
Another day that I really enjoyed that I'm sorry you weren't really a part of.
That's okay. I knew you were going to say.
Kaylee and I ended up going to the beach together. Gavin isn't much of a beach person, but Kaylee loves the beach. I love the beach, and Kaylee was like, "Let's do a girls' day." So we headed over to the beach in Valencia. We bought some beach chairs and an umbrella. We hung out in the sun. We went for a couple swims. And then we ended up hitting up a cocktail bar, getting some tapas, having some really good seafood. We had some mussels. We had some calamari. And just kind of like hanging out, shooting the shit. I mean, we hadn't seen each other in a couple months, so it was just really nice to have some time.
Okay, so Kayla, last question to wrap this up. What is your score out of 10 for Spain?
I really enjoyed Spain. I really enjoyed the lifestyle that we kind of like took on in Spain. Very cafe culture, very tapas. I love myself a sharing plate.
Yeah.
It also has really good weather, and it is a very walkable country. All 3 cities that we were in were very, very walkable. I think I'm going to give it an 8. I would love to visit some other places in Spain, obviously. But we got a very good idea of what kind of food they have in certain portions of the country.
Yep.
We got a good idea of the 3 cities that we were in. We felt really, really immersed, which I really loved. And I loved every single one of them. They all felt safe and stuff like that. I know Barcelona gets a bad rep for having a lot of pickpockets, but I never felt that.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think overall an 8. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I was going to give it an 8. I think I loved it more than I did some of the South American countries, but I also feel like in some of the South American countries, we got to immerse ourselves a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
This just felt like we did 3 weeks and we did move around a little bit quick, but because we wanted to see so much.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think what I really enjoyed about it was we finally got to, like, this was the first country where we kind of got the mornings to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to do all of that, and then we would go and then I would work, and then we would, kind of do like a late dinner.
Yeah.
So overall, I really enjoyed it. I still would give it an 8 out of 10. I would probably go back to it. I don't know, like, am I in a rush to go back to Spain? Probably not. But if, tomorrow family was like, hey, we want to go to Spain. Do you want to join us? I'd probably be like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that is our wrap up of Spain, country number 5.
Country 5, we will
Good country.
we will be showing you after this all of our Italy stuff, because that's where we're at now, and soon enough we'll be wrapping up Italy. So time is a moving.
Thank you again for joining us. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have someone in your life that is coming to Spain and you want to give them some pointers, or you think that everything that we said was useful today, or little bits and pieces were useful, please feel free to share this with them.
Yeah. And if we missed anything, or if you think we got something wrong, let us know, because we are learning. We do not come to these countries as experts. We do not leave as experts. So we're still happy to learn.
We will see you next week, and you can find us in Naples, Italy. Bye.
Bye.